Hello there, mighty companions. This is Earl Purdy. I want to welcome you to Hardcore Course in Miracles. I want to welcome you to Hardcore Course in Miracles. I want to welcome you to Hardcore Course in Miracles. I want to welcome you to Hardcore Course in Miracles. Yes, we're going to talk about recognizing that your problems have been solved. How do you recognize that your problems have been solved? How do you see that? How do you experience that? That you recognize any problem that you have has been solved. We're going to talk about that with me, Earl Purdy, here on Facebook Live, Hardcore Course in Miracles. And we're going to start out with a song from my buddy John Christmas at johnchristmas.com. That's from A Course in Miracles and based on the Course in Miracles to kind of get us in the mood before we learn how to recognize that our problems have been solved. Here we go. And breathe and let yourself enjoy. Yeah. Wow.
There's a call for God, I see it everywhere. Everybody's running scared, and everything is turning upside down. But the words I hear, they keep coming through from deep inside of me and you. It's telling us that love is who I am. You and me were not that far apart. Yeah, we're beating the same heart. We've been together from the start. Tell me, can you hear it? Tell me, can you feel it? Put your arms around it and know that we are one. Yeah, yeah, we are one. Now let's come together and understand that Christ was born inside of every man. He's waiting for us to choose him as ourselves. When you choose him, you know you choose me too. And everyone becomes a part of you. And then you will know that love is who I am. You and me were not that far apart. Yeah, we're beating the same heart. We've been together from the start. Tell me, can you hear it? Tell me, can you feel it? Put your arms around it and know that we are one. Yeah, yeah, we are one. Oh, we are one.
I want to welcome you to Hardcore Course in Miracles. I'm Earl Raj Purdy, and we are going to get down. This is Hardcore Course in Miracles. It's aimed at people who studied the Course in Miracles, and they want to take advantage of my 40-plus years of teaching and learning a Course in Miracles and save themselves some time and move a lot faster. We're going to talk about, the title to is Let Me Recognize My Problems Have Been Solved. We're going to talk about how do you recognize all your problems, any problem has been solved. That's what we're going to talk about.
And
Lesson 80 in the Course in Miracles workbook. Lesson 80, page 143 in the Course in Miracles workbook. Lesson 80. Tell me, can you hear it? Tell me, can you feel it? Put your arms around it and know that we are one. Oh, oh, we are one. Yeah, yeah, we are one. Oh, oh, we are one. I am you, and you are me. Brother John Christmas at johnChristmas.com if you want to get that music. It's so great to be with you, mighty companions. I love it when we get together, mighty companion, and go deeper into the Course in Miracles. We're going to go deep. It's about the practical application of it. It's about using it. And remember, you don't need to believe the ideas. The Course says you don't need to accept the ideas, believe the ideas, welcome the ideas. The Course in Miracles says some of these ideas are going to be hard to believe. Some of these ideas are going to startle you. Some of these ideas are going to be hard to believe. Some of it's going to startle you. You don't have to welcome these ideas. You don't have to accept these ideas. You don't have to believe these ideas. The Course in Miracles says you're not being asked to judge and analyze the ideas at all. You're not being asked to judge and analyze the ideas at all, because if you just use the ideas, you will see that the ideas are true, and you will see that the ideas work if you use the ideas. I call myself the divine repetition teacher, because the Course in Miracles says the most important thing to do with the Course in Miracles and with the truth is to remember it. Remember it, not analyze it, not even necessarily understand it, but it's important that you remember what it's saying so that you can use what it's saying and apply what it's saying. So after my 40 years of teaching, my focus is on helping students and people who are watching and listening to A Course in Miracles to actually hear what it's saying and to actually remember what it's saying. Because the biggest challenge in using the truth is remembering it. How can you use something you don't remember? How can you use something you don't remember? How can you use ideas you don't remember? So your first most important thing to do at first is just to let yourself hear it. So we're doing lesson 80. Let me recognize my problems have been solved. Say that. Let me recognize my problems have been solved. Say it. Let me recognize my problems have been solved. 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 So that's going to be on page 143 in the Course in Miracles workbook, the Foundation for Inner Peace version. So let me allow myself to get centered. I want to let the Holy Spirit, the voice for love, the voice for God, I want you to use my body, use my body, use my body. God, use my body. Love, use my body. Truth, use my body. Spirit, use my body. I want to be used for love. I want to be used to bring the truth. I want my body to be used for love. I want my body to be used to express the truth. I want to be the voice for love. So please, Spirit, use my body. Use my body. Here we go. Take a breath. Take a breath. Do you know what you need to be willing to do? If you are willing, if you're willing to recognize your problems, if you're willing to recognize your problems, you will recognize that you have no problems. If you're willing to recognize your problems, you will recognize that you have no problems. If you're willing to recognize your problems, if you're really willing to see what your problem really is, then you will have no problems. So what is the key to having no problems? The key to having no problems is your willingness to actually see what the problem is. It's your willingness to recognize your problem. You have one one central problem. You have one main problem. That problem is believing that you are separate from God. If you knew you were not separate from your Creator, if you knew you were connected to the greatest power and the greatest love that you could ever even begin to realize, if you were to recognize your connection, if you were to know your connection to your source, you would see all your perceived problems disappear. I don't care what that problem is. You would see that problem disappear. According to A Course in Miracles, you would recognize that you have no problem. If you were really willing to recognize what the problem is. So your one central problem, that you are separate from God, that problem has been answered. That problem has been answered. That problem of being separate from God, being separate from your source, that problem has been answered. And you don't have any other problem. According to the Course in Miracles, you don't have any other problem but the problem of thinking that you're separate from God. You don't have any other problem other than the problem of thinking that you're separate from God. You don't have any other problem but the problem of thinking that you're separate from all that is. So your one central problem has been solved, and you don't really have no other problem but that one central problem. So therefore, do you know that you must be at peace? Your salvation, your very happiness, do you know that your very happiness, your very peace depends on recognizing this one problem. Your problem of thinking that you're separate from your Creator. The fact that you don't really truly know your connection to your source, that is your only problem. Even though you might think you have other problems, you can think you have a rent problem, a money problem, a health problem, a job problem. But the Course in Miracles says you just have one problem. You think you're on your own. You think you are alone. You think everything is up to you. You have lost the awareness of your connection with God, your connection with your source. But that problem has been answered. Do you know that's the good news? That problem has been answered, so you must be at peace. What does that mean? There's a part of you that is at peace. Your real self is at peace. Your true self is at peace. There's a part of you that knows its connection, its oneness to its source. That part of you is at peace. Do you know that you need to recognize your one problem and understand that it's been solved? You need to recognize your one problem and recognize that your one problem has been solved. One problem, one solution. 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 There's one problem, 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 one. You think you're separate from God, that's your problem. You think you're separate from God, that's your problem. You think you're separate from love, that's your problem. You think you're separate from your Creator, that is the one problem, but you're not. And so that problem has been solved. That problem has been solved. Your salvation is accomplished. Your peace is accomplished. Your right-mindedness is accomplished. Why is it accomplished? You're now in your right mind because you recognize that you only have one problem, and that problem of thinking that you're separate from God, that problem of thinking that you're separate from love, that problem has been solved. That problem has been solved. So what is it that's been given you? What have I just given you? What has the Course in Miracles just given you? Freedom from conflict. Do you want freedom from conflict, my mighty companion? Do you want freedom from conflict? If you want freedom from conflict, then accept that there is only one problem, that problem of separation, and that problem has been solved. If you knew you were connected to your source, if you knew you were connected to God, you wouldn't see yourself as having any problems. You would recognize that your problems have been solved because you have finally recognized what your only problem is. And your only problem is thinking that you're separate from God. Your only problem is thinking that you're separate. If you think that you don't think you're separate from God, but at the same time you see problems, then I would venture to say you do think you're separate, or you wouldn't see any problems. So accept that fact. Accept that there's just one problem and that there's just one solution. And when you accept that there is only one problem, separation, and one solution, which is joining, forgiveness, your connection to God, then you are ready. Are you ready to take your rightful place? Are you ready to take your rightful place? There's a lot going on in the world. Are you ready to take your rightful place in God's plan? Are you ready to do what you were born to do? Are you ready to take your place in the plan of love for your healing, for your happiness? Are you willing to do your rightful part in achieving your own happiness? Are you willing to take your rightful place in God's plan? I'm willing to take my rightful place in God's plan. I'm willing to take my rightful place in love's plan. I, Earl Purdy, I'm willing to take my rightful place in God's plan for healing and peace. I'm willing to take my place in the plan. I'm willing to take my place in the plan. Are you willing to take your place in the plan? Are you willing to take your place in the plan? Your only problem has been solved. Your only problem has been solved. The Course in Miracles says, repeat this. You see why I keep saying I am the divine repetition teacher? Because the Course says, repeat this over and over to yourself today. Repeat this over and over to yourself today. Repeat this over and over to yourself today. What is it that you need to repeat to yourself over and over and over and over today? That your only problem has been solved. Now, don't worry about understanding this. Don't worry about believing it. Remember what I said at the very beginning, the Course in Miracles says you need not believe it. So don't let whether you believe it or not stop you from repeating the idea over and over. Repeat. The Course in Miracles didn't say you have to believe this. It said repeat this. It didn't say believe this. It said repeat this. Repeat this when? Over and over. And with gratitude, as much gratitude as you can. And with as much conviction as you can. Repeat, my only problem has been solved. My only problem has been solved. Your only problem has been solved. Your only problem's been solved. Your only problem's been solved. Your only problem's been solved. Your only problem has 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 been solved. Repeat this over and over. My only problem has been solved. My only problem has been solved. My only problem has been solved. Do what the Course says. My only problem has been solved. Say it to yourself. My only problem has been solved. You recognized your only problem. And what is that only problem? That only problem was me believing that I'm separate from God. My only problem is losing my connection and my communication with my Creator. That is my only problem, is that I think I'm separate from love. God is love. So I may not recognize that that's my only problem. I may think my only problem is something else. But the Course in Miracles is saying you only have one problem, dude. You think you're separate from God. You think you're separate from your Creator. If you didn't think you were separate from your Creator, you wouldn't have any problems. You wouldn't even think you had a problem. If you knew your connection to God, if you were aware of your connection to your source, you wouldn't even think you had a problem. You would see that your problems have been solved. So what does that mean? It means that if you think you have problems, then it also means at some level you think you're separate from God. If you see yourself as having lots of problems, it means whether you realize it or not, you think you are separate from God. You don't know your connection to your source. So if you're willing to recognize your only problem, if you're willing to recognize that your only problem is separation, do you know what you would be doing if you were willing to say, my only problem is separation? You would be opening the way. Do you want to open the way? Well, how do you open the way for the Holy Spirit? How do you open the way for God? How do you open the way for love? How do you open the way for the answer? How do you open the way for the Holy Spirit to give you God's answer? Do you want to open up the way for the Creator to give you the Creator's answer? The Course in Miracles says that all you have to do is be willing to recognize your only problem and say, my only problem is separation. My only problem is separation. My only problem is separation. Your only problem is separation. You don't know your oneness with God. You don't know your oneness with God. I know you may think you know your oneness with God, but if you think you have a problem, that means you don't know that you are one with God. If you perceive a problem, that means you don't know that you only have one problem. That problem is separation, and that problem has been solved. So if you're willing to recognize your problem, that is the problem of thinking you're separate, then you're opening the way for the Holy Spirit to give you God's answer. You're opening the way for your inner teacher to give you the answer. You have laid deception aside. You've seen the light of truth. How do you know you've laid deception aside? How do you know you finally stopped fooling yourself? Well, you will know that you finally stopped fooling yourself when you recognize your only problem. If you accept that your only problem is separation, then you're opening the way for the Holy Spirit to give you God's answer. It means you've laid deception aside. It means you've seen the light of truth. That means you have accepted salvation, which is the truth, for yourself. If you were to say, I have only one problem and it's already been solved, my only problem was separation, and that problem has been solved, then you have accepted the answer for yourself. And how do you accept the answer for yourself? How do you accept the answer for yourself? You accept the answer for yourself by bringing the problem to the answer. You have to bring the problem to the answer. How do you bring the problem to the answer? How do you bring the problem to the answer? The problem is separation. The answer is joining, oneness, connection, being aware of your connection to your source. When a person is really ready to have their one problem solved, which will solve all the many different problems that they think they have, this is a person who makes their number one priority their relationship to their Creator, their relationship to God. A person that's really awakening is a person that knows the most important thing you can possibly do is make sure you are aware of your connection to that which created you. The God, the infinite power that created you. You didn't create yourself. 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 You did not create yourself. You didn't create yourself. You have a creator. You did not create yourself. You didn't create yourself. You didn't create yourself. You have a communication problem. Your only problem is a communication problem. You have lost the ability to communicate with your own Creator. You've lost your ability to communicate with God. You have a connection. You have a connection that has solved every problem. That is your connection to your source. And A Course in Miracles is one way of removing the blocks to that communication. A Course in Miracles is one way. It's not the only way. But for some people like myself and others, they know that the Course in Miracles is their path, that the answer to removing those blocks is within the teachings of A Course in Miracles. So you want to recognize, and you have recognized the answer because the problem has been identified. I have identified the problem. What is the problem? The problem is separation. What do you mean the problem is separation? Your only problem is that you think you're on your own. The only problem is that you've lost your sense of connection to the source, the infinite intelligence, the infinite love that created you. You may call it God, but God is the answer to all of your problems. And just because you don't know how to communicate with your creator doesn't mean your creator isn't communicating with you. And it doesn't mean that your creator doesn't exist just because you aren't aware of it. There are a lot of things that exist because even though you may not be aware of it. So your being aware of God has nothing to do with the reality of God. Your believing in God has nothing to do with the reality of God. The reality of love is there. Love exists. Love really exists. The question is, why don't you know it all the time? Why aren't you aware of it all the time? Because you think you're separate from it. You think you're different from it. So the Course in Miracles says you're not. You are connected. So your problem has been solved. You can recognize the answer because the problem has been identified. You are entitled to peace today. 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 A problem that has been resolved is a problem that cannot trouble you. So what is a problem that cannot trouble you? What is a problem that cannot trouble you? I'll tell you what a problem is that can't trouble you. A problem that doesn't trouble you is a problem that has been solved. A problem that doesn't trouble you is a problem that has been resolved. So how do you move toward recognizing that your problems have been resolved? Only be certain. What do you need to be certain of? Only be certain. What do you need to be certain of? Be certain you do not forget. See, you don't forget, don't forget. There it is again. It just kept, it's earlier said, remember. Now the Course in Miracles is saying, don't forget. Don't forget, don't forget what? Don't forget that all problems are the same. Don't forget that every problem is the same problem. Every problem is an outpicturing of the same problem. Every problem that you see in the world, every problem that you see, every problem is an outpicturing of the same problem, an outpicturing of the one problem. Don't forget that. Don't forget what? Don't forget to remind yourself this. Even though I think I have a lot of problems, I really have one problem. Even though I think I have a lot of problems, I really have one problem. One problem, one solution. One problem, one solution. All problems are the same. 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 Don't forget. Don't forget what? All problems are the same. If you don't forget that all problems are the same, then the many different forms that problems take won't fool you. So don't be fooled by all the different appearances that the one problem takes. I know you think it's a money problem, a health problem, a career problem, a relationship problem, a car problem, but don't be fooled. Don't be fooled. Every problem that you see is a reflection of the one problem of thinking that we are separate from each other and separate from God and separate from love. That's the only problem, is that we think we're separate. That's the only problem, that we think we're truly different. That's the only problem. So if you don't want the many different forms that problems take to deceive you, you need to tell yourself all problems are the same. All problems are the same. Then there are many different forms won't fool you. While you remember all problems are the same. One problem, one solution. One problem, one solution. One problem, one solution. One problem, one solution. Accept the peace that this simple statement brings. One problem, one solution. Accept what? Accept the peace this simple statement brings. What do you mean? Accept the peace this simple statement brings. What simple statement brings? That there's one problem and one solution. So in our longer practice periods, what we're going to do right now, we're going to claim the peace that must be ours. Are you ready to claim the peace that must be yours? Are you ready to claim the peace that must be yours? Well, peace is going to be yours when you bring the problem and the answer together. So when are you going to have peace? When the problem and the answer is brought together. The Course in Miracles says the problem is separation, and that problem is a grievance. And the Course in Miracles says the solution is a miracle. The solution is a correct perception of love. The solution is an expression of love. So there's one problem and there's one answer. The problem must be gone. So why is it that the problem must be gone? Well, because if the problem isn't gone, that would mean that God could fail. I mean, how could the Creator fail? How could you be so special that you have a problem that God can't solve? How can you be so doggone special that you think you have a situation that the infinite Creator that created us cannot solve? God's answer can't fail. How can you tell? If it's an answer that comes from God, the answer cannot fail. So if you recognize that the problem is gone, that's the same as you recognizing that God cannot fail. God's answer can't fail. So if you think you have the problem, do you know that that means you still haven't recognized God's answer? You haven't heard God's answer. If you think you still have the problem, you really haven't recognized God's answer, because God's answer cannot fail. God's answer cannot fail. Love's answer cannot fail. Love's answer cannot fail. Your Creator's answer cannot fail. There's no such thing as I got an answer from God and it didn't work out. I got an answer from God and it failed. That's not possible. So I haven't recognized the problem. I haven't recognized the answer if I still think I have the problem. The solution is inherent in the problem. The solution is in the problem. The solution is in the problem. You are answered. You are answered. Don't say that you haven't received an answer. You are answered. I'm answering you right now. The Course in Miracles is answering you right now. Within the teachings of A Course in Miracles, as well as other spiritual books, within the teachings of the Course in Miracles and other spiritual truth books, you have the answers. You have the answers to every single thing that's causing you conflict, but you have to study, you have to read, you have to meditate. You must focus your attention on the answer. You can't just keep saying, I want the answer, I want the answer. But when the solution comes, you won't allow yourself to receive the solution. And for those of you, the Course in Miracles, for some of you, the Course in Miracles has the answer. The Course in Miracles is giving you the solution. You have manifested the answer. There's only one problem and one answer, and I'll say it again. If you're unhappy, it's because you think you're separate from your source. If you have any kind of problem, it's because you don't know your connection to God. You don't know your connection to source. And I'm not talking about a man in the sky with a human form that's arbitrarily punishing and not punishing people. That is not the Creator. We are not bodies. We are more than bodies. So your Creator is more than a body. And your Creator is not a man. So you got to get over that. That is not the truth. Love is your Creator. That infinite Creator, that infinite intelligence, that's love. So you need to let yourself have some peace. What kind of peace? You need to let yourself have the peace that your acceptance of what I've told you, you're going to let yourself have the peace that your acceptance brings be given to you. When you accept the truth, you have peace. When you finally tapped into an answer that's real, you have peace. When you're looking at things correctly, you have peace. Because when you accept the truth, peace comes to you. So remember, God's answer is always some form of peace. The true answer is always some form of peace without attack. So I want you to close your eyes if you're able to close your eyes and receive your reward. Close your eyes. I want you to receive your rewards. If you can, if it's safe to do it right now, close your eyes and listen to my voice and close your eyes. And listen to my voice. Close your eyes and listen to my voice. Listen to my voice. Close your eyes and receive your reward. Recognize that your problems have been solved. Recognize that your problems have been solved. 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 Recognize that you are out of conflict. Recognize that you are out of conflict. Recognize that you are out of conflict. Recognize that you are out of conflict, free and at peace. Are you willing to recognize? Are you willing to recognize that you are out of conflict, free and at peace? Above all, what is the thing that you need to remember above all? What is the thing that you need to remember above all? I'll say it again. Remember. See the word again. Remember, 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 remember. The remember chant. Remember, 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 remember. Remember what? That you have one problem. You have one problem. Remember, 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 you have one problem. And that the problem has one solution. The problem has one solution. Remove the block to your awareness of your connection to source. Learn how to let go of your fear, your anger, your guilt, your sense of separation. Learn how to let go of the blocks in your communication with your source. That is the one answer. That is the one answer. That is the one solution. And it is in this that there's one problem and one answer. It is in this that the simplicity of salvation lies. The simplicity of your peace, the simplicity of your happiness comes with the realization and remembering that you have one problem and that problem has one solution. What is it that you should assure yourself of often today? What is it that you should assure yourself of often? What is it that you should assure yourself of often today? That your problems have been solved. 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 Say it to yourself. My problems have been solved. 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 Say it to yourself. My problems have been solved. My problems have been solved. I don't have to understand that. I don't have to necessarily believe that or welcome that. I might have resistance to that. I might think that's the biggest bunch of crap that I could ever say, but that doesn't matter. That doesn't matter that you believe it. The Course in Miracles says, no matter what your reactions may be to the ideas, use the ideas. So what have we been told? We've been told that you should assure yourself often today that your problems have been solved. The Hardcore Course in Miracles class is for people who are ready to not spend an hour analyzing, but to spend an hour doing the practical application of the ideas that the Course in Miracles is teaching us that we need to do in order to have peace. So, say to yourself that your problems have been solved. And then it says right in the book, repeat the idea as best you can. Repeat the idea with deep conviction. Yeah, if you can do it, if you can repeat the idea in deep conviction, repeat the idea as frequently as possible. Repeat the idea with deep conviction as frequently as possible. So, okay, what else do you do? Well, you need to be particularly sure to apply the idea for today. What is the idea for today? Let me recognize my problems have been solved. That's what it says. So what are we being told to do? I'm going to repeat. Here it goes. It says, assure yourself often today that your problems have been solved. Repeat the idea with deep conviction as frequently as possible. With deep conviction, repeat the idea. My problems have been solved. My problems have been solved. Your problems have been solved. Be particularly sure to apply the idea for today. Let me recognize the problem. Let me recognize this problem has been solved. Repeat the idea for today. It says right here, be sure to apply the idea for today to any specific problem. Be sure to apply this idea today to any specific problem that may arise. Apply this idea to any problem that comes up during the day or the night. Apply this idea to any problem that seems to come up. Apply this what? Idea. It said apply this idea, the idea for today, to any problem that comes up. Say quickly. It said what? It said say quickly. Say quickly. Say quickly what? Let me recognize this problem has been solved. I just had this problem come up with my kid. Let me recognize this problem has been solved. I just had this problem come up on my job. Let me recognize this problem has been solved. I just had this problem come up in my mind and in my emotions and in my feelings. Let me recognize this problem has been solved. Apply this idea for today to any specific problem that may arise. Apply this idea to any problem that comes up. Apply this idea to any problem that comes up. Say quickly. Quickly say. Quickly say. You just had a problem come up. You got this problem that you're dealing with. You have this problem that you're dealing with. You have this issue that you're dealing with. You have this difficulty that you're dealing with. You got this difficulty that you're dealing with. Say quickly, let me recognize this problem has been solved. 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 Repetition, repetition, repetition. I'm going to drive you sane. I'm going to drive you sane. I'm not going to drive you crazy. I'm going to drive you sane because the Course in Miracles says it right here. Repeat, assure yourself, repeat, assure yourself. So if you're really sincere about changing your mind, if you're really sincere about being a really powerful, mighty companion, I want you to take this opportunity to actually practice what the Course in Miracles is saying. Get out of your head and allow yourself to rise from the dead. Get out of your head and rise from the dead. Get out of your head and rise from the dead. Get out of your head and rise from the dead. And get out of your head and rise from the dead. Come into your heart. That's where you start. Come into your heart. That's where you start. Now let's do it together. Let me recognize this problem has been solved. 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 You know the problem. Let me recognize this problem has been solved. 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 So what is it that we need to go now? Let's do it good. If you've been thinking about saying it, let's do it one more time. Let me recognize this problem has been solved. 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 Let you recognize this problem has been solved. Let you recognize this problem has been solved. Let you recognize this problem has been solved. Let's be determined not to collect grievances. What? Let's be determined not to collect grievances. Don't be a grievance collector. Are you a grievance collector? Are you a grievance collector? Have you collected so many grievances that stop being a grievance? Stop being a grievance collector. 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 You just walk around all day collecting grievances. Let's be determined. Be determined for what? Let's be determined to be free of problems. What? Let's be determined to be free of problems. I want you to become determined to be free of problems that do not exist. I want to be free of my problems that don't exist. I want to be free of any problems that do not really exist. Let us be determined to be free of problems that do not exist. Be determined to be free of problems that do not exist. Now, how do you make yourself free of the problems that do not exist? How do you allow yourself to be free of problems that do not exist? The means is simple honesty. Simple honesty. The Course says honesty is consistency. Honesty is consistency. It's through simple consistency. That's how you allow yourself to be free of problems that don't exist. Do what the Course in Miracles is telling you to do, and do it consistently. Don't deceive yourself about what the problem is. Do not deceive yourself. 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 Do not deceive yourself about what the problem is. Stop fooling yourself. The problem isn't your mother. The problem isn't your father. The problem isn't the economy. The problem isn't anything that's outside of yourself. Don't deceive yourself about what the problem is, and you must recognize that the problem has been solved. Don't deceive yourself about what the problem is, separation, and you must recognize that the problem has been solved. If you don't see the problem as having been solved, it means you haven't truly recognized what the problem is yet. I'm going to do a quick recap, and we're going to drive this home one more time in just a few minutes. I teach on a donation basis. I appreciate whatever you feel led to share. I'm a full-time teacher. If you like to share, go to my website, www.earlpurdy.com. Purdy. If you like to use Venmo or some of those apps, my email address is earlpurdy@earlpurdy.com. Purdy. I am an advisor, and I am an astrologer and a numerologist, as well as a Course in Miracles teacher. It was actually my study of astrology that led me to get on my spiritual path that eventually led me to the Course in Miracles. I do what's called clarity sessions, where I personally work with you, focusing in on something that you know you'd like to see differently, something that you know you would like to get handled and healed in a peaceful way, using these principles and my over 40 years of experience. I'm available. It's called a clarity session. Go to my website, earlpurdy.com. Go under the clarity session tab, and it will explain all the details about my services, and you can self-book an appointment with me right from my website. And sign up for my contact list also, so that you can be made aware of any classes or workshops that I may do in the future. Woo! Every Sunday at 1 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, I do another Course in Miracles Facebook Live on the Earl Purdy page. The Earl Purdy page. And also my videos are also posted on YouTube. So you also get these videos on YouTube. And I don't know if you know it or not, but on YouTube, you can control the speed of the playback. So you could actually listen to a whole hour class in 30 minutes. So you can go through it faster and really hear it. I'm with you, mighty companion. I'm with you. I'm with you. So 1 p.m. Mountain Time on Sundays on the Earl Purdy page, I do a Course in Miracles. And then we do hardcore Course in Miracles on Thursdays at 7 p.m. Mountain Time on the Earl Purdy page. So I'm here. Like my page, follow my page, share my videos. I want you to help me get the word out. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to do the repetition. Some of you might just want to listen, and some of you might want to join in. But what we are going to do is we're going to do what the Course in Miracles says. We're not going to analyze it. We're just going to do what it tells us to do. And one thing that the Course in Miracles told us to do is to don't forget that all problems are the same. Don't forget all problems are the same. The only problem is that I think I'm separate from all that is. The only problem is that I think I'm separate from the divine. The only problem is I think I'm separate from God. The only problem is I think I'm separate from my source. And since I don't know the connection to my infinite power, my infinite source, it looks like I have all these many different problems that I'm trying to deal with every day. I have all these different problems and issues and difficulties that come up in my day. And so it looks like there are so many different problems and things that I've got to deal with. What am I supposed to do? You're supposed to remember that all problems are the same. All problems are the same. It's your sense of separation from your Creator. And the Course in Miracles is one way to get rid of that block to that sense of separation, so that you can communicate and be communicated to and guided by your divine inner teacher. So tell yourself that your problems have been solved. You want to tell yourself, even if you don't believe it, even if you don't believe it, even if you don't believe it, it's time for you to receive your reward. It's time for you to recognize that your problems have been solved. It's time for you to recognize your problems have been solved. So you're going to tell yourself, my problems have been solved. 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 Your 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 problems. So you should be saying this to yourself. You should be saying this to yourself. My problems have been solved. 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 So when you have any specific problem come up, whenever you have any specific problem come up, say quickly, let me recognize this problem has been solved. Let me recognize this problem has been solved. Let me recognize this problem has been solved. Say it. Let me recognize this problem has been solved. 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 Or let me recognize this problem has been solved. Say it. Let me recognize this problem has been solved. Let me recognize this problem has been solved. Let me recognize this problem has been solved. Be determined not to collect grievances. Be determined to be free of problems that don't exist. Use simple honesty. Don't deceive yourself about what the problem is. And you must recognize that the problem has been solved. Remember, just do what the Course says. You don't have to necessarily believe it or understand it. Just do what it says, which is to repeat the truth to yourself, because that's symbolic of your willingness. That's symbolic of your willingness to have God's answer. I love you so much. Man, I love A Course in Miracles. I'm so grateful and thankful. I'm so grateful and thankful to you. I'm so grateful and thankful to you. I'm so grateful and thankful to you. I'm so grateful and thankful for you. I'm so grateful and thankful to you. I'm so grateful, I'm so grateful, I'm so grateful, I'm so grateful to you. I thank my Creator for its gifts to me. I thank my Creator for its gifts to me. I thank the Creator for its gifts to us. I thank the Creator for its gifts to us. Let us recognize our problems have been solved. Let me recognize the problem so the problem can be solved. Let me recognize this problem has been solved. Let me recognize the problem so the problem can be solved. Let me recognize this problem has been solved. Let us recognize the one problem has been solved. Mighty companions, I love you so much. I appreciate you so much. Thank you for your generosity. And may the Course be with you. Share this video, all right? Listen to it at least 4 times. Yes, 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 yes. And I look at all your comments and I read all your comments. Thank you, Mighty Companions, for being here live with me and listening later on. Appreciate you.